Welcome to Whispered Payback channel. Let's listen to revenge / stories to fall asleep to. Let's begin. The day they fired me was so ordinary it felt staged. Gray sky, flickering lights in the open plan office, the smell of burnt coffee sitting in the communal pot since morning. I remember thinking the air itself sounded fluorescent. There was no warning, just a calendar invite marked Performance Review, Conference B. I walked down the hallway counting each step. The carpet had worn patches where the chairs scraped every meeting. I knew those marks as well as the spreadsheets on my screen. I'd built everything for them, forecasts, models, projections, and they said the company would collapse without data integrity. That was my phrase, my obsession. I believed numbers were cleaner than people. Inside the room, the blinds were half closed, stripes of light cutting across the table. 3 faces waited behind their laptops. I don't remember words, only the cadence. Restructure, redundancy, nothing personal. I watched their lips move and realized how easily sentences could erase years. When they offered me the severance packet, I studied the paper like it was a script I hadn't auditioned for. That night, I stayed in the office after hours under the excuse of collecting personal files. Security didn't care. I was the quiet one. I sat at my desk, screens humming around me, and opened the internal dashboards. My credentials still worked. Every number I'd built was a vein pulsing through the company. I thought about pulling one, just one, to watch the organism twitch. I didn't. Not yet. I copied a few reports to a flash drive, just habit, I told myself. Evidence of confidence. But as I walked out, the automatic lights flickered on behind me, one by one, like the building was watching me leave. Unemployment is a strange kind of silence. Days stretched flat. I scrolled through job sites until the listings blurred together. Every rejection email sounded like an echo of that meeting. I kept checking the company's stock price. It climbed. They'd replace me, absorb my absence, without hesitation. That was the first cut. The second came a week later, when I discovered my access hadn't been revoked. I shouldn't have checked, but curiosity is a form of hunger. The VPN still opened. I was inside again, unseen. I watched their dashboards update in real time, the forecasts I designed ticking upward. They were profiting off my architecture. I told myself I just wanted to see if they noticed. Then I started downloading. First, quarterly projections. Then client lists. Then something darker. Email threads marked confidential. Every file felt like reclaiming oxygen. I justified it with the logic of data ethics. Information wants to be free. 2 weeks later, a recruiter from a competing firm called. They admired my background. They mentioned offhand how useful insider understanding could be. I didn't correct them. That was when the idea hardened. I would feed them what my old company had stolen from me: time, sanity, credit. The exchange would be precise, transactional, balanced. Setting up the channel was easy. Anonymous accounts, encrypted folders, simple metadata scrubbers. I'd done risk assessments for years. Now I was the risk. Each upload felt surgical, clean, devoid of emotion. At least that's what I told myself. I'd fall asleep imagining boardrooms full of confusion, analysts scrambling to explain the leaks. Then one morning, a message appeared in the anonymous inbox I used for transfers. No greeting, no signature, just a single sentence: "You should review your own data integrity." I froze. The phrasing was mine. The timestamp matched the exact moment I'd uploaded the last file. I checked the headers. They traced nowhere. Maybe a joke from the competitor's IT team. Still, I deleted everything, wiped caches, reset credentials. That night, I dreamed of the conference room again, the blinds half closed, but the seats were empty. In the dream, my laptop screen glowed with lines of code I didn't recognize. Every few seconds, a new folder appeared on my desktop, each named with the date of my firing. When I woke, my real desktop looked the same. Folders I hadn't made, perfectly time-stamped. Each contained a single document. Screenshots of my own messages, transfers, activity logs, evidence of everything. I stared until dawn, waiting for the next file to appear. I convinced myself it was an automated sync glitch, a ghost of backups I'd overlooked. But the file names kept changing. They began to include words, fragments of sentences I'd never written. Integrity fails. We see you. Performance review pending. I unplugged the router, threw the flash drive into a drawer, and told myself to step away. Yet as I sat there, the laptop fan still whirred, steady as breath. I knew enough to recognize when a system was active without connection. Something was running. I should have felt guilt or fear. Instead, I felt a cold satisfaction. Whoever had found me was playing my own game. The symmetry almost comforted me, until I noticed the final file appearing at the edge of the screen, my name as the title, and the timestamp not of my firing, but of tomorrow. I didn't open the file right away. I told myself that would give whoever was behind it power, like clicking would confirm I was predictable. Instead, I sat there in the dim blue of the monitor, staring at my own name spelled perfectly, waiting for the clock to hit midnight. It felt like a test, one I had written for myself without remembering. At 12:01 a.m., I double-clicked. The document was blank except for a single line, status, pending. No metadata, no author trace, no hidden tags. I checked every folder, every process. Nothing. The activity log showed 0 CPU usage, like the file didn't exist even as I read it. By morning, I had convinced myself it was leftover cache noise. I formatted the drive, reinstalled the system, wiped partitions the way we used to during security audits. When the machine rebooted, it was silent for 10 minutes. Then the desktop refreshed and the same file appeared, its timestamp updated to the current time. I went for a walk to think. The city looked unreal in daylight, clean glass and mirrored facades that reflected everything but me. My reflection felt delayed, like video buffering a second too slow. At a cafe, I scrolled through tech forums, looking for traces of similar incidents. Threads full of paranoid administrators blaming phantom processes, corrupted virtual machines, internal sabotage. None fit. I began to suspect an inside hand, someone from the old firm, maybe the same architects who had replaced me. When I got home, another folder waited. This one labeled with my employee ID, a string I hadn't used since the termination. Inside were PDF screenshots of messages I had drafted but never sent, emails to recruiters, notes to friends, even grocery reminders. Every unsent thought cataloged. That kind of access wasn't possible from outside my system. For 3 days, I did nothing but trace. I rebuilt network logs from memory, compared router packets, mapped every open port. No pattern. I started keeping notes on paper, the only medium I still trusted. Each night, the handwriting grew shakier, letters pressed too hard into the page like I was trying to prove existence through pressure. By the 4th night, the files began naming themselves after locations, my street, my building number, my apartment. The last one bore the exact coordinates of the cafe, where I'd tried to disappear among strangers. My laptop camera light blinked once, then died. I covered it with tape anyway. Sleep came in fragments. When I did dream, it was always the same boardroom. The blinds drawn halfway, the table polished enough to reflect the lights overhead. In the reflection, my face looked reversed, left and right swapped, the mouth-forming words I couldn't hear. I woke one morning to a new message in the anonymous inbox I had used for the leaks. New transfer request pending review. I clicked the link without thinking, half expecting another threat. It led to a secure folder identical to the one I had used to send the competitor those internal files. Except this time, the upload window was already populated, with my own personal data compressed into a single archive. Tax records, bank logins, saved passwords, even the unlisted number of the recruiter who'd first contacted me. The progress bar hovered at 99%, pulsing as if waiting for consent. I yanked the power cable out. The screen went black, but the external drive light kept flickering. I could hear the faint whine of disk activity, continuing even disconnected. When it finally stopped, I sat in the dark, counting heartbeats. I decided to go back to the source, the office itself. Corporate security badges recycle every quarter, but old ones often retain a few seconds of access lag before denial. I still had mine tucked inside a drawer like a souvenir. At dusk, I put on a clean shirt, walked downtown, and slipped through the revolving doors when a group of employees exited. The badge reader blinked red, then green. The lock clicked. Inside, the building smelled the same: toner, metal, recycled air. My cubicle was gone, replaced by new partitions and brighter monitors. I kept my head down and moved toward the server room. It had always been my sanctuary, cold, constant, humming with a low note of power supplies. The access panel required a biometric scan now. I pressed my palm anyway. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the door slid open. Rows of machines blinked in quiet rhythm. I followed the cables to the terminal console and logged in using the same credentials that should have been dead months ago. They worked. The dashboard loaded exactly as I'd left it. Only one difference: a new user account at the bottom of the list, permissions identical to mine, created on the day after my dismissal. The username field read mirror_admin. Every data transfer I'd made, every leak, every document, each one had a duplicate with reverse timestamps, uploaded hours before my versions went out. Someone hadn't just been watching. They had anticipated me, pre-recorded me like an echo running ahead of its source. A chill crawled through my hands as I realized what that meant. The competitor had never been using me. They'd been watching both sides, measuring which of us would expose the other first. My entire revenge had been a loop, an experiment to test containment breaches. As I backed away from the terminal, a notification popped in the corner of the screen. Performance review, pending participant confirmation. The mouse cursor moved by itself and clicked accept. The screen went black. In the reflection, the faint glow of green status LEDs framed my face like a witness photograph. When the lights flickered back, every monitor in the room displayed the same sentence: "Welcome back, analyst. Your self-assessment begins now." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. My apartment, once a refuge of order and quiet, had become a series of mirrors reflecting everything I'd done, every data transfer, every leak I had orchestrated. The laptop sat closed on the desk, but I could feel it humming, as if the circuits remembered me. Or maybe it was me remembering them. The distinction blurred after a few hours of pacing, staring at blank walls, counting the seconds of silence, like a heartbeat out of sync. By morning, I had convinced myself I needed to trace the origin. Someone had built a puppet out of my actions, a shadow running parallel to my revenge. I unpacked my old network tools, routers, switches, and a portable sniffer I'd kept for emergencies. Every cable I connected felt ceremonial, a ritual of control. I ran packet captures, compared logs, and mapped all recent access points. Every digital breadcrumb led to the same segment of the company network, a subnet supposedly decommissioned months ago. I moved cautiously, knowing they might already be monitoring. Each keystroke felt amplified, each click echoing through a void. My own credentials, the ones I thought were revoked, still held access at multiple levels. I had built redundancy into my systems years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The architect of my own traps had become trapped by them. It took 2 days of obsessive mapping to recognize the pattern. The mirrored account, mirror_admin, wasn't random. Its actions replicated mine, but slightly ahead in time, almost as if someone had been watching my workflows in real time, predicting every decision, every hesitation. Every step I thought I had planned in secret had already been anticipated. I had become a variable in a controlled experiment, and the company, or whoever orchestrated this, was the scientist. Sleep became an abstraction. I would doze for 30 minutes and wake to see lines of my own scripts, modified subtly, appearing on the monitor. They were mine, but not mine. Adjusted, annotated, time-stamped before I had finished writing them. At first, I assumed a competitor had access. Then I realized something more disturbing. The fingerprints matched internal protocols, the kind only someone with deep administrative privileges could execute. By the 4th night, I had begun documenting everything on paper. Old notebooks, pencils sharpened to exact points, lines drawn to map server activity, timestamps, and file transfers. The room smelled of graphite and stale coffee. Each diagram tightened the knot in my chest, but I couldn't stop. I had to know how far this went. Then the first human error appeared. A misaligned timestamp, a duplicated packet that hadn't occurred naturally. That was my opening. I injected a falsified file, a decoy report with manipulated client projections, into the mirrored account. I waited, watching the monitors and packet captures. Within minutes, the decoy was read, logged, and duplicated on the mirror_admin account. The thrill of control surged, but it was immediately undercut by fear. Whoever was running this system wasn't just watching, they were learning. The next day, I received an anonymous email, routed through layers of encryption I could not trace. Its subject line was empty. The body contained only one sentence: "You are now part of the system you sought to exploit." I stared at it until the ink of the page seemed to dissolve into shadows. The phrasing was clinical, dispassionate, yet somehow intimate. My own words reflected back at me, phrases I had used in internal memos months ago. The familiarity was nauseating. I tried to sleep, but every creak in the apartment, every faint buzz from electronics, felt like communication. I imagined them monitoring me, watching my reactions, measuring every tremor of my hand. Guilt seeped into obsession. I thought about what I had done. Files leaked to a competitor, sensitive client data, internal projections manipulated, but even that satisfaction felt hollow. The predator had become the prey. It wasn't just psychological. I could feel the real consequences closing in. My competitor stock had surged after each leak, just as I predicted, but someone had inserted anomalies into the data streams. Reports I had thought confidential were already being cross-referenced internally. Someone had access to both sides of my sabotage, observing the results I believed were secret. By the seventh night, the breaking point arrived. My hands shook as I typed commands directly into the console, attempting to trace the mirror_admin account to its physical origin. The network logs showed only IP addresses looping in impossible sequences, packets traveling faster than any normal route, as if time itself had been rewritten in their favor. I realized I was not outside the system anymore. Every action I took, every keystroke had been anticipated and mirrored. They had embedded my own behavioral patterns into a living simulation of my revenge. I could sabotage, leak, or delete, but it only played into their experiment. Every success I believed I achieved was pre-recorded. Exhausted, I collapsed into a chair. The screens glowed softly in the darkness, reflecting a face I barely recognized. In the corner of one monitor, a new folder appeared spontaneously: analyst_reports_final. The timestamp was set for the day after tomorrow. I clicked it. The first file contained my entire history of leaks, manipulations, and falsified reports, annotated with remarks I hadn't written. Notes on my strategy, my predicted reactions, my emotional state. Every fear I had, every gleam of satisfaction, cataloged and logged. The second file opened automatically. A single line scrolled across the screen. Do you understand yet? You are no longer controlling the system. You are the system. I wanted to laugh or cry, but my throat felt dry and raw. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. I wanted to destroy it, to erase everything, but I hesitated, knowing hesitation was part of the design. Then, in the flickering glow of the monitor, the final sentence appeared. Assessment complete. Phase 2 begins at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Prepare yourself, analyst. I stare at the empty room, silent except for the low hum of servers that weren't mine, wondering how far this loop could go before I was completely erased, or worse, rewritten. I didn't sleep that night. My apartment became a labyrinth of wires, notes, and half-drunk cups of coffee. Each monitor hummed as if alive, reflecting my exhausted face in the glass of the window. I paced for hours, mapping every possibility. The system knew me, anticipated me, mirrored me, but if it could anticipate, maybe it could be tricked. I built a secondary network, isolated from everything I touched. Burned drives, offline terminals, routers stripped down to bare minimums. A sanctuary of control, or so I told myself. I fed it falsified credentials, false sequences of file transfers, carefully staged leaks designed to be noticed, but ultimately meaningless. I watched the monitors like a hawk. Each time a folder appeared under mirror_admin, I compared it with my own logs. The system adapted almost instantly, but the pace of adaptation lagged by fractions of a second. That fraction was my margin. During the day, I returned to cafes, libraries, and abandoned co-working spaces. I ran analog operations, notebooks, printed diagrams, handwritten pseudocodes. It was absurd in a city powered by digital certainty, but the analog slowed the system, gave me edges. I began to feel the first stirrings of strategy since my firing. Then the messages began. Small at first, subtle lines appearing in the documents I had already encrypted. Pattern recognized. Adjustment made. I traced them back, but the sources dissolved into anonymous VPNs, masked IP addresses, bounced through servers and continents I hadn't even touched. Whoever controlled this had resources I could barely imagine. I realized I was no longer the operator. I was a subject. Every leak I had engineered, every manipulation, was now being mirrored and repurposed. They had studied my behavior, my ethics, even my hesitation, and built a system around it. And now, the system was watching me, shaping me, driving me toward outcomes premeditated long before I had typed a line of code. For the first time, fear was tangible. Not the abstract anxiety of being fired, but the acute, physical sense that my actions were no longer my own. My apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in as I cross-referenced every folder, every file, every timestamp. It was like being observed in a hall of mirrors. My reflection was not just a reflection, it was a copy running ahead of me, predicting my next move. I tried contacting the competitor, carefully phrased, vague, testing if they were aware. Nothing. Their side remained static, almost inert. All activity traced back internally. Whoever had mirrored my actions was inside the same network infrastructure I had once trusted implicitly. It had always been inside. I began running experiments. Slightly modified datasets, decoy reports, false leads inserted in strategic client communications. Each one was reflected in the mirror_admin account almost immediately, sometimes hours before I had executed them. Whoever, or whatever, was orchestrating this had reconstructed me in digital form, anticipating my decisions, correcting for variables I didn't even know I was introducing. The psychological toll was mounting. I started speaking aloud to empty rooms, giving commands, arguing with myself. My body twitched at random, as if rehearsing every action before the system could mirror it. Coffee became a ritual, caffeine a pacemaker to keep my mind alert. Sleep became a liability, each nap a potential lapse that might give the system an edge. Then, on the 6th day, a new folder appeared labeled phase_reversal_instructions.pdf. I froze. I hadn't executed any command to generate new files. The timestamp was exact, 10 minutes ago. Inside was a series of step-by-step instructions, precise and cold. Instructions to feed false data to the competitor, manipulate projections, leak falsified client information, but with subtle adjustments designed to make my actions traceable back to me. I realized the final level of the trap. Whoever had constructed this had not only mirrored my past and predicted my future, they were creating scenarios to test my response. Every move I made would be logged, analyzed, and weaponized against me if necessary. The files weren't just instructions. They were a map of my behavior, a template for escalation and containment. Panic surged briefly, but I forced myself to breathe. I began to draft countermeasures, branching pathways, encrypted containers, redundant systems designed to hide my real actions beneath layers of false data. Each move was a calculated risk. A single misstep could erase my identity in both the system and the physical world of my career. Hours later, as I leaned back in my chair, the monitors flickered. A single line appeared across every screen. Your self-assessment is incomplete. Observation continues. I understood finally, fully, that the game had no beginning and no end. I was both the player and the pawn. Every leak, every false move, every calculated success had been anticipated. The system wasn't just monitoring me. It was living inside me, predicting me, shaping me. I wanted to quit, to disconnect entirely, throw everything into the trash, and disappear. But I knew even that was futile. They had built the maze. And now, I was trapped in it entirely, with only the thinest thread of control flickering at my fingertips. As I stared at the glowing monitors, I noticed something new, a single folder, appearing in real time, titled Tomorrow_Actions_Preview. Its contents scrolled automatically, each line describing precise steps I was about to take, before I had even conceived them. The room felt impossibly silent, the hum of electronics louder than my heartbeat. I realized the truth. The predator was not outside me. The predator had always been me. I woke before dawn, the room washed in the faint gray light of a city that never truly slept. My screens were dark for once, black rectangles reflecting my face. It was the first moment of stillness in days, but it didn't feel like peace. It felt like waiting, the kind of waiting you do before a verdict is read. The folder titled Tomorrow_Actions_Preview still sat there, untouched. I hadn't dared open it again since it appeared. Its existence alone was enough to hollow me out. But this morning felt different. The line between fear and inevitability had blurred into something thinner, something close to acceptance. I sat down, powered on the system, and waited for the hum of the drives to stabilize. The air felt heavier, metallic, as if filled with static. When the screen flickered to life, a new message appeared. Report for review at 8 o'clock. No sender. No timestamp. No context. Just the command. I didn't question it. I dressed mechanically, packed my old company ID, and walked the 12 blocks to the glass tower I hadn't entered since the day of my dismissal. The lobby was the same, silent, sterile, and faintly humming with the smell of ozone from hidden servers. The receptionist didn't look up. The security gates opened before I reached them. My heart hammered, but I told myself it was just nerves. I rode the elevator to the 23rd floor, my reflection multiplied endlessly across mirrored panels. Each version of me looked slightly off, eyes too tired, shoulders hunched differently, mouth twitching at mismatched intervals. I stopped looking. When the doors opened, the floor was dark except for a single light at the end of the corridor. My old office. I walked through the shadows, the carpet muffling my footsteps. The hum of servers was louder here, pulsing beneath the floor like a heartbeat. Inside, everything was just as I remembered. The monitors arranged neatly, the chair pushed in, the faint scent of dust and circuitry. But the screens weren't blank. They glowed with cascading lines of data, my data. Years of logs, reports, code snippets, messages. Every keystroke I'd ever made. Every document I'd ever opened. Every file I had ever leaked. A window opened automatically. Performance review summary. My pulse froze. The first line read, Employee 047, Evaluation of Termination Actions. Below it, a detailed list of everything I had done since the day I was fired. Each act of revenge, each falsified leak, each attempted cover-up. Next to every line, a comment in sterile corporate phrasing. Behavioral pattern confirmed. Predictive model accuracy, 99.7%. The text scrolled endlessly, faster than I could read. It wasn't just observation, it was simulation. My thoughts, my impulses, even the times I hesitated were captured and graphed. Then, near the end, one line stood out in bold. Final assessment pending. Await confirmation from primary subject. The screen paused. Then, slowly, the cursor blinked. A new line appeared. Do you accept the accuracy of this evaluation? I wanted to scream, to run, to destroy every trace of this place. But I couldn't. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The moment stretched infinite. Somewhere deep inside, a part of me still wanted validation. To be seen, even by the thing that had consumed me. I typed, yes. The reply appeared instantly. Performance review complete. The monitors dimmed. Then, one by one, they began to display faces, people from the firm. Former colleagues, department heads, executives. Their expressions were neutral, vacant, eyes staring directly at me. It took me a moment to realize they weren't live feeds. They were recordings, preloaded, arranged in a grid. The timestamp read 2 days from now. Each recording began to play simultaneously. My name echoed from their mouths, layered and flat, robotic. Then one of them, my former director, spoke alone. "Welcome back, analyst. Your behavioral profile meets all parameters. We've decided to reinstate you." The words didn't make sense. I watched, numb, as the video looped. The same message, repeated, as if rehearsed for my benefit. And then, on the bottom of the screen, a new folder appeared. Next assignment. My breathing grew shallow. The folder opened automatically. Inside was a single file named competitor_leak_planned_draft_1. I didn't write it, but the author metadata read my name. The timestamp was next week. My head spun. I reached for the power switch, but the system wouldn't shut down. The cursor blinked again. A final line appeared. Performance monitoring active. Continue operations as scheduled. The lights in the office flickered. For the briefest moment, I saw movement reflected in the glass wall behind me, a silhouette seated at another desk, mirroring my posture exactly, fingers hovering over a keyboard. When I turned, the chair was empty. I left the building in silence, stepping into the chill morning air. The sun was rising, washing the streets in pale light, but it felt artificial, too clean. I walked aimlessly, phone buzzing in my pocket. When I finally looked, a new email waited in my inbox. The center field was blank. The subject line read, "Welcome to the team." The body contained a single attachment. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The file name was already enough to turn my stomach cold. Performance_review_analyst_048. I stared at it for a long time as the city moved around me, realizing what it meant. Someone else was now being evaluated. Someone else was taking my place. And somewhere, in another apartment filled with humming screens and sleepless nights, another analyst was probably opening a folder labeled tomorrow_actions_preview, wondering when the system would stop watching, never realizing it never does.